Well, this latest shooting in the United States will embolden those who believe that America's gun laws are too lax. Joining us now from Nashville to discuss it further is Jonathan Metzl. He's a professor and director of the Center for Medicine, Health and Society at Vanderbilt University. Thank you so much for joining us. First off, there's been a lot of talk, and we've spoken to guests earlier, about whether automatic and semi-automatic weapons are, what exactly their status is in the US. Can you explain that for us?
Sure. Well, across the board, generally, automatic weapons, really since the early parts of the 20th century, have been largely, but not entirely, illegal. And so civilian ownership of things like machine guns and automatic rifles has really been restricted, except for people in the military, and as is the case in Nevada, under particular legal situations. So automatic rifles are things that, as a general but not entire rule, people should not own. On the other hand, semi-automatic weapons, which can be converted into automatic weapons, have been relatively easy to obtain, and certainly more easy to obtain on a civilian level than they are pretty much in most of the rest of the civilized world. And that's because we've had legislation in the past that regulated semi-automatic weapons, but that legislation ran out about 5-6 years ago, and there's been no effort to reinstate it, really.
We've just run our viewers through, during the special program, from 2007 to today, some of the worst mass shootings in modern history in the US, Florida, Sandy Hook. I mean, after all of these incidents, there is the discussion about gun control. Do you think this incident is likely to lead to increased gun control, or like other mass shootings, when the headlines die down, life just goes on as normal?
Well, the sad truth for people like myself who study mass shootings and gun violence in America is that you would think that mass shootings would lead to people kind of coming together and saying, can't we all come together in spite of our political differences and stop this senseless death? But instead what we find is that mass shootings like this actually make people more polarized. In other words, if people are more likely to support gun violence, gun restrictions, they're more likely to say we need more gun control. But on the other side, people who are pro-gun or anti-legislation, they're going to become more polarized in their views. And so, unfortunately, the gun violence and mass shootings are a reflection of the larger polarization of U.S. society. And until we can create some kind of center positions, which I do think are possible, these incidents, unfortunately, just become more polarizing.
I'm interested in the idea of American society. I mean, it seems from the outside that there's an American love of guns. Can you give us an idea of where this comes from? And crime rates are at record lows right now, so why do so many people still feel the need to hoard so many weapons?
Well, I'm sure from the outside it seems like it's something, and it is. I mean, U.S. gun ownership is so out of step with the rest of the world. We have about 89 guns per every 100 people. So basically that doesn't mean that 89 people out of 100 have a gun, but we have enough guns to go around one for pretty much every citizen of this country, which is completely out of step with the rest of the world. People who support that right to own guns, which is, again, we're kind of divided around the middle of this, point to the Second Amendment of the Constitution, which they feel like gives everyone the right to own a gun unless proven otherwise. In other words, we're the only country that says everybody has the right to own a gun, and then what we start to do is exclude people based on criminal history or mental illness, other factors like that. But every other civilized country says gun rights should be restricted, and then you have to prove your right to own a gun. And so we're, in a way, flipping that history. And the other issue is there's obviously a long history of gun ownership, but we have an immensely powerful gun lobby that is really not allowing a more centrist conversation, which is unfortunate because as I talk to people about this issue, I think most Americans are somewhere in the middle. They respect the Second Amendment, but they also think something needs to be done and that these issues highlight that.
I'm interested in this, in the pro-gun lobby groups. How do they wield so much influence? Is it just a matter of throwing cash in the right direction? Is it, infiltrating coverage? How do they wield so much power?
Well, it's a multifactorial issue. I mean, one is that they're just an immensely powerful lobbying group, and so there are a lot of politicians and businesses that feel not only beholden to that lobby, but they also feel afraid of speaking out against what are, I think, increasingly kind of extreme positions. So partially it's just that there's a lot of top-down political pressure, and I think the other thing they've done, quite successfully to be honest, is that they've kind of made this argument that giving even a centimeter is giving up the entire issue, and so they've kind of made this very pervasive argument that any kind of cooperation, any kind of centrist position is an affront to gun owners everywhere. And so I would say, for example, background checks are a great example. Background checks in the United States have been shown effective to really half the rates of certain kinds of violence. But when President Obama 2 Januaries ago said we need to enforce background check laws more stringently, people were up in arms and saying, no, this isn't right, this isn't possible. And so I think there's this idea that even if you give just the teeniest centimeter into this issue, you're selling out your cause is one that I think they've been very effective, unfortunately, at spreading through their membership.
That is Jonathan Metzl, Professor and Director of the Center for Medicine, Health and Society at Vanderbilt University, live from Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you so much for joining us.